Hey everybody, welcome back to Integrative Psychonautics. I hope you've been doing well out there. So in today's video, we're going to be discussing two of the absolutely most important questions you could possibly ask yourself when it comes to your personal growth path or your therapeutic process or your trauma healing process, your work with psychedelics, your spiritual growth. It kind of doesn't matter the context here. There are two really key crucial questions that are absolutely deeply important tools right at the heart of this work that I want to convey to you here and explain to you why I think they're so important. So if that appeals to you, please watch on. Okay, so if you're familiar with my work at all, you probably have gotten the sense that I'm always trying to kind of boil down this massive ocean of information that I've taken in and probably that you've been exposed to too. If you're kind of a nerd for this kind of personal development, therapy, trauma healing, psychedelic use, kind of intersection where all of these things kind of connect and fit together. So I'm always thinking about how can we articulate these ideas in the simplest, most elegant, most effective way possible. How can we boil down all of the information to what the most crucial high leverage bits are, right? Kind of in the spirit of maybe Tim Ferriss, who's certainly an influence on me. And so, to that end, today's discussion is really about these two questions that I think are really at the heart of the work here. So I'm going to just share the questions with you, and then I want to give you some frames about how I think about these questions and why I think these questions are important. So it kind of gives a little context and a little understanding as to how and why to use these questions. Okay, so the two questions are, A, what's here? What's here inside of me, or interrelationally between me and someone else, or what's here? What's already here? And then the other question is, how do I relate to this? In what way is the right way, or the optimal way, or the way that feels most correct? How do I relate to this? So the two questions are, what's here? And how do I relate to this? Now, this is especially, I think, valuable as a set of questions or as a set of tools when it comes to internal work with ourselves, but this also very much applies, in our relationships, to be honest. So those are the questions. Let me explain to you how I think about them and why I think they're so incredibly fundamental and important. So allow me to give you a kind of key concept here up front that I think starts to help make this make a little more sense. So here's the basic idea. What's in me is already here. So whatever fears, whatever traumas and life experiences I've been through, whatever patterns I have, whatever shame, whatever judgment, whatever strengths, whatever hidden potentials, whatever gifts, whatever beautiful capacities, whatever intelligence, whatever, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All of my qualities and capacities and capabilities, whether they're actualized or not, all my memories, all of my entire history, all of the things that I'm kind of trying to suppress and run away from, they're already in me. They're already alive in my body, in my neurology, in my circuitry somewhere, right? So this is an important thing to understand in contrast to the idea that when we aren't paying attention to our problems, that they somehow magically go away or disappear or aren't there. I realize that the illusion is that, we can, kind of ignore things and that our problematic patterns tend to come and go, which is kind of experientially true on one level. But it's not really that whatever the problem pattern is in your life, that it just kind of goes away and it's literally not there. It's more that it's still here. It's just not what's operating in the current moment. It's like that part of you has just been switched to the back burner for a moment, but it's always here, right? And so the reason that this frame is so important, this understanding is so important, is that we really want to break the illusion and the assumption that avoidance is an effective strategy for dealing with trauma or fear or challenging emotions or stressful memories or things we don't want to process or don't want to deal with. It's already here. It's already in you. It's already alive. It's already a part of your nervous system, right? Your nervous system, if you have a habit of whatever it might be. You know, let's say it's a habit of self-judgment, right? If that's a thought loop that you return to semi-regularly, or an emotional state that you return to semi-regularly, that's already in you. It's already there, right? So it's not necessarily a matter of trying to pretend like it's not there. That's not going to work, because it's already here. So what we want to do is start to look at what's already here, because then, you know, what we're doing is, instead of avoiding, we're turning towards the pattern, learning to recognize it, learning to accept and embrace that it's present, and then we can work with it. So this is one of the key things, is to understand that it's already here in you, whatever the thing is that you don't want to deal with, that you know is a problem in your life. It's already here. So if you just accept that it's already here, then all there is to do is to work with it and heal it and transform it. Okay, so let me offer another kind of key concept here that is, I think, so important to really understand. And that is this ability to learn to meet whatever is happening that's already here, you know, in us, meeting that with kind of, let's say, an attitude of compassion, of kindness, of love, of curiosity, of a willingness to explore and be present with, right? We really want to meet whatever arises in us with love and compassion, right? And so this is, you know, just to bring these two questions back, the two powerful questions are, what's here and how do I relate to this, right? And the answer to how do I relate to this, really, no matter what it is that's arising in you, should be some form of, I'm going to meet this, what's in me, with love, with compassion, with kindness, with curiosity, right? This is so important, right? And this becomes really self-evidently important on psychedelics, for example, where, okay, you've taken a big dose of a psychedelic, you're having these bubbles and these waves of memories and, you know, old experiences and new insights and, you know, positive states and then uncomfortable states. And you're kind of moving through this whole spectrum of different feeling, right? Now, if you can bring a consistent attitude of love and compassion to every experience that arises in you, then it turns that entire process from confusing and overwhelming and frightening to just literally an opportunity to practice loving over and over and over. And in the presence of love inside of yourself, what you'll feel is a sense of safety and a sense of power and a sense of connection and a sense of, like deep, rewarding emotional openness with whatever it is that you're experiencing. You'll feel, really, if we open our heart and we practice loving, not only does it help us to feel safe and grounded and know what to do, it also starts to really help us feel much more alive, much more vibrant, much more free, much more whole, much more flowing with our own life force. So this becomes a really key, crucial practice on psychedelics, and I'll speak in a moment on, really a great way to learn this. But not only is this useful in psychedelics, this is also useful in daily life. So whether you're meditating and you're having waves of boredom and irritation and discomfort and fear and stress and anxiety, whether that's just you're doing healing work. Like if you're properly doing healing work and you're kind of doing transformative therapeutic work, there will be kind of bubbles of different aspects of your personality, parts of your psyche, if you want to think of it that way, that pop up, right? And some will be filled with fear, and some will be filled with hopelessness, and some will be filled with playfulness and cuteness, and some will be childlike, and some will be very adult-like. And all of these are valuable parts of you. They're deeply important. They're you, right? And so if you understand that everything that arises in you is you, then the question becomes, how can I meet this with a loving attitude, with a curious attitude, with a compassionate attitude? How can I meet? And so there's kind of a master skill that gets developed as we practice this continual meeting of whatever arises with love and compassion. There's kind of this master skill that we start to develop of this overarching ability, this kind of deeper sense of me or I that transcends whatever mood or state or feeling we're in. So we access this deeper, more stable, more patient, perhaps more divinely aligned, if you want to think of it that way, aspect of ourselves that is capable of meeting all the different facets and faces of our personality with this like same attitude of compassion and love, right? Now, as we get good at this, this is also something that really becomes a life skill for your relationships, for your family, if you're going to have kids, or, your siblings or your parents. This becomes a way to relate to your pets and your animals. This becomes a way to relate to all of life that's much more skillful, that's much more centered and much more clear, right? And so this is a little bit of an application of perhaps maybe a Buddhist practice or a Hindu practice of compassion. But it really is kind of the only game in town here. We have these two questions, what's here? Do I have the courage to just acknowledge what's already in me and accept that? And then how do I relate to this? How can I meet this with love? How can I meet this with curiosity? How can I meet this with kindness or compassion? And I get it, there are, edges and facets and emotions and parts of us that are really hard to stay present with, that are really uncomfortable to be kind to, or really hard, to, not react to. But this is the skill that heals you and pays off for the rest of your life. So yeah, what's here? How do I relate to this? Well, let's talk about how to learn how to do this in a medicine context. So a lot of people at this point in the video probably are thinking, well, yeah, that sounds great. That sounds a little idealistic. That sounds like, how do I learn to do this? I've never been good at being patient and tolerant and compassionate and, loving. And I do get reactive and I get angry and I get judgmental and I get, all the things. How do I get past all that and find this groove of centered, compassionate, patient presence, right? Which is really what I'm describing here. There are a lot of ways to get there, and I do think this is one of these things you probably want to just practice in daily life. You probably want to practice in your spiritual practice, develop a meditation practice, and sit and learn to be present with whatever's coming up in you in this really centered, curious, compassionate, attuned way. But in addition to that, if we're talking medicine use and we're talking using psychedelics, this is really one of the strong suits of MDMA. And I think for myself, and certainly for a lot of people I know, the kind of the training grounds of learning like consistent kind of endless patience and endless compassion and endless love really is in the MDMA state. So if you're working with MDMA, and of course, I can't encourage you to be using an illegal substance. I'm just saying if that's a part of your, what you're already doing in your life, one way that you can use MDMA is to, again, practice this self-inquiry. What's here in me? And how do I meet that with love and compassion, right? And practice this on MDMA. And MDMA really gives you this kind of access to this deeper, open-hearted, consistent, kind of abundant, flowing kind of compassion or love space. Ideally, not always, let's be honest and let's be fair. It doesn't work that way for everyone every time. If nothing else, it should make things a little more relaxed, a little safer feeling, a little easier, a little more like, less stressful. And that can kind of be enough of an opening here, or enough of a space to start to explore, how do I meet what's here with compassion and with love? Another way of saying this, if we want to kind of frame this more in like a therapeutic understanding, is that the major thing that holds your issue in place day in and day out and year out over and over, that keeps you stuck with the same problem, that keeps you from progressing, is avoidance, right? So avoidance of the emotion you don't want to feel, the memory you don't want to remember, the thing about, life that you don't want to see, the thing you don't want to process, the uncomfortable states, it's avoidance of all of this stuff that really does keep us stuck in the same pattern over and over and over, right? And so by flipping that around and just asking yourself, okay, well, what's here? Because it's already here. That's beginning to undo avoidance, right? And then if you start to practice meeting whatever is in you, whether that's terror or grief or fear or hopelessness or, childish parts of you that are underdeveloped, that you're ashamed of or what have you, if you can meet whatever that is with a bit of compassion, with a bit of kindness, with a bit of love, oddly enough, it's very healing and it's very pleasurable kind of, and it becomes a self-reinforcing thing that starts to prove to you that, as I meet these parts of me with this attitude, it's healing. And not only is it healing, but it makes it easier to do. It makes it easier for me to explore these hard edges and these tough things that I really kind of would rather not look at if I apply this kind of attitude of loving, compassionate curiosity. It also, like I'm being a little redundant here, but it also makes you better at loving in general, which is, I think, a crucial life skill. So yeah, this, is something absolutely that if you're using MDMA, you can practice on. But, what about other psychedelics? Let's say you're using psilocybin or LSD or DMT or something else, ayahuasca. Same deal. You can absolutely apply this same practice with different psychedelics. It pretty much works across the board, no matter what state you're in, and really is a wonderful foundation for doing like real therapeutic healing work. It starts to build this ability to tune into yourself and, and have the courage to go there. So, so let me just kind of summarize this here by saying the two key questions you want to think about are what's here, right? And how do I meet this? And in particular, how do I meet this with curiosity, with compassion, with love, with kindness, and just practice those as a life skill. I promise you, these are at the heart of the work, right? The heart of the work is having the courage to not avoid and to really lean into what's already present and to process it and change it. But you can't process or change what you're not willing to look at. So that's my message to you today. I hope it's useful in your life. For me, these have been absolutely transformative, useful tools over the years and have led me to have, quite frankly, a lot more positive psychedelic experiences than what I see people going through online. So if you're someone who kind of struggles with having a lot of bad experiences, this might be a practice to try to implement. So enough said, I'm kind of rambling on here, but again, I hope this is useful. And as usual, I appreciate all of you. And if you find this useful, please do me a favor, leave a like, leave a comment, let me know how this landed for you, share the video with someone else. And generally, let the algorithm know I'm here. I'm terrible about promoting the channel. And I would like to kind of get the viewership up and get more engagement here. So thank you to all of you. Have a beautiful day, and I'll talk to you soon.